You ever kind of looked at your own financial situation and wondered, why it seems stuck or why maybe certain patterns keep repeating? These pages offer a pretty fascinating, maybe even challenging perspective.
They absolutely do. This material, it goes beyond just talking about the practical steps like, budgeting or investing, though it does touch on those.
Right.
Its central argument is really about something less visible, something deeper, what it calls your subconscious financial blueprint.
Financial blueprint, okay.
And it claims this blueprint is the primary force really determining your financial outcome, whether you're, say, heading towards wealth, staying stuck in the middle, or, consistently struggling.
Okay, let's unpack that then. The mission for this deep dive is to explore what these pages are saying this financial blueprint actually is, how it suggests it got formed in the first place, and maybe most importantly, look at the strategies and mindsets it presents for potentially changing it.
Right. And the promise in this source is pretty big. It's that understanding the root causes of your financial results is really the first step to dramatically shifting your financial future.
Okay. So where does it start? How does it frame this?
So the source starts by drawing distinction. It talks about the outer laws of money things most people focus on, like knowing business strategies, managing cash flow, understanding investments.
The practical stuff.
The practical stuff, exactly. These are necessary, definitely, but the source argues they're only half the equation.
It uses that analogy, doesn't it? The carpenter one.
Yeah, the carpenter. You need quality tools, absolutely. That's the outer stuff.
Right.
But the source says having those tools isn't enough. You also need to be a skilled carpenter who knows how to use them masterfully.
Okay.
It puts it like this. It's not enough to be in the right place at the right time. You have to be the right person in the right place at the right time.
The right person. So that points inward.
Exactly. That idea of being the right person, it points to the inner realm. Your character, your thinking patterns, your beliefs, your habits. These internal factors are presented as equally, if not maybe more, critical than the external mechanics.
And it mentions duality.
Yeah.
Inner and outer laws.
Right. The principle of duality. In a world of opposites where outer laws exist, the source argues there must be inner ones too. It just makes sense.
And this leads to that central metaphor they use, the fruits and roots one.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. If you look at a tree, the fruits are the visible results, like your money situation, your bank balance.
What you can see.
What you see. But those fruits, they come from the roots, which are invisible, buried beneath the surface. That's your inner world, thoughts, feelings, beliefs.
So the argument is, if you want to change the fruits,
you have to change the roots first. That's what the source claims. You can't just change the results directly, or if you do, it won't last.
It's like that thermostat analogy it uses later.
Right. Exactly, yeah. Like trying to change the temperature in a room by just looking at the thermometer, it doesn't work. You have to adjust the thermostat, the underlying control.
So it's saying the physical realm, which includes our money, our health, all that is basically a printout.
A printout, yeah. A printout of what's happening mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Those are the other three quadrants it mentions.
Yeah, cause and effect.
Precisely. It emphasizes the cause and effect principle. Money itself isn't the cause, it's the result. Wealth is a result. Health is a result.
And a lack of money.
A lack of money isn't the root problem either, according to this. It's a symptom. It's a printout of something going on deeper down.
Okay, that makes sense conceptually, but
yeah.
Okay, if our outer results are a printout of this inner blueprint, how is that blueprint actually formed? I mean, where does it come from?
Good question. The source suggests it's largely shaped by subconscious conditioning, mostly during childhood.
Subconscious conditioning.
Yeah. This conditioning determines your automatic thoughts, which then lead to specific decisions. Those decisions drive your actions, and your actions ultimately produce your results, your outcomes.
And it says this conditioning happens in three main ways.
Three key ways, primarily. The first one is verbal programming.
Verbal programming. So what you heard.
Exactly. This is all about the messages you heard about money, wealth, and rich people when you were young. Think about the phrases that were, common in your household or around you.
Like, money doesn't grow on trees.
That's a classic one. Or money is the root of all evil. Or you have to work hard for every penny. Rich people are greedy. Maybe we can't afford that. Constantly.
Right. Things you hear over and over.
Exactly. The source says these statements, heard repeatedly, embed themselves in your subconscious. And to change this, it proposes a 4-step process.
Okay, what's the process?
First step is awareness. You actually consciously identify and write down all the specific statements you remember hearing about money, wealth, rich people growing up. Just get them out.
Okay.
Second, understanding. You reflect on how those particular statements might have influenced your financial beliefs and decisions, throughout your life so far. How did they maybe shape things?
Makes sense.
Third is disassociation. This is really key. You recognize that these thoughts were learned from outside sources. They aren't inherently who you are, they're just old programming.
So detaching from them.
Detaching, yeah. And realizing you have the power now, in the present moment, to choose to think differently.
And the fourth step.
Fourth is declaration. The source suggests making powerful, explicit statements to reprogram yourself. Like, put your hand over your heart and declare, what I heard about money isn't necessarily true. I choose to adopt new ways of thinking that support my happiness and success.
Saying it out loud.
Yeah, and then it suggests touching your head and saying, I have a millionaire mind. These declarations, they help solidify the conscious choice to adopt new programming. It's about embodiment.
That process feels very deliberate. Okay, so that's verbal programming. What's the second way the blueprint gets formed?
The second way is through modeling.
Modeling. So watching others.
Exactly. This is about observing how your parents or guardians actually behaved with money. Were they tight savers, big spenders, careful investors? Did they avoid dealing with money altogether?
It's a monkey see, monkey do idea.
Right, applied to finances. The source notes we often unconsciously just mirror our parents' financial habits, for better or worse. It tells that story. Remember the one about the ham?
Oh, yeah, the woman cutting the ends off the ham.
Exactly. She always cut the ends off before baking it just because her mom did. Then she finds out her mom only did it because her mom did it.
Because the pan was too small.
Right. Generations of doing something without knowing why. It's a perfect little illustration of inherited behavior without conscious thought.
It's a great example. It shows how deep that unconscious modeling can run. But the source also talks about the opposite, right? The rebel reaction.
Yeah, the rebel phenomenon. Someone sees their parents struggle, maybe, and vows to be the complete opposite. They might even get rich, but
the motivation is still tied to the past.
Exactly. Their core motivation might still be linked to the past, maybe driven by anger or resentment or this deep need to prove themselves.
And the source suggests that's not ideal.
Well, this is where it gets interesting. It suggests that if your main drive for money is linked to negative emotions like anger, fear, or needing to prove something, your subconscious might actually connect wealth itself with those negative feelings.
So you might subconsciously push it away.
Potentially. To find peace or feel free from those emotions, you could subconsciously find ways to get rid of the money, maybe through poor decisions or overspending, things like that.
Wow. So the advice there is what? Change your motivation?
Pretty much. Disconnect money motivation from those negative roots, anger, fear, proving yourself, and consciously link it instead to more positive, purposeful drivers, things like contribution, personal growth, joy, freedom.
Link it to something positive.
Okay.
And the third influence?
The third one is specific incidents.
Specific incidents, like particular memories.
Yeah. Memorable, often emotionally charged experiences involving money, probably from your childhood.
Is it like the story the author shares about his wife? The ice cream truck one?
Exactly that story. He describes how, for his wife, getting a quarter for the ice cream truck as a kid was linked powerfully to immediate pleasure, excitement.
Right.
But for him, maybe seeing his father deal with financial ups and downs led him to associate money more with achieving freedom from struggle.
So the same thing, money can have totally different meanings based on these early experiences.
Absolutely. These different meanings attached to money from childhood incidents can profoundly shape our beliefs and how we act around it as adults.
And you can easily see how those conflicting core meanings could cause friction in a relationship, like the author mentioned about his own marriage.
For sure. Fights about money often aren't really about the money itself, but about these deeper conflicting blueprints.
So how does the source suggest dealing with these specific incidents?
Yeah.
Is it a similar process?
Very similar process to the verbal programming one. 4 steps again. First, awareness. Recall a specific emotional incident around money from when you were young. Try to feel the feelings associated with it.
Reflect on how that particular incident and the feelings or beliefs it created might have shaped your current financial life or patterns.
Okay, see the connection.
Third, disassociation. Again, recognize that the way you reacted or the belief you formed back then was learned in that specific situation. It doesn't have to define you now. You have the choice to respond differently today.
Reclaim your power of choice.
Exactly. And fourth, declaration. Same idea, hand over heart. Say something like, I release my non-supportive money experiences from the past and create a new and rich future. Then touch your head and declare, I have a millionaire mind.
Reinforcing the new path.
Right.
Okay, so all this conditioning, what you heard, what you saw, specific emotional events, this all comes together to form this subconscious financial blueprint.
Yes.
And the source says this blueprint acts like a thermostat.
Exactly, a financial thermostat. It's set to a specific financial temperature or level of comfort for you.
So, like whether that setting is for earning thousands a year or millions, or maybe even consistently being in debt.
Wherever it's set, your subconscious tends to guide you back to that set point, almost automatically.
Just like a thermostat in a room, right? If the temperature drops below the setting, the heat kicks on to bring it back up. Gets too hot, the AC turns on.
Precisely. And the source gives some really powerful examples of this in action. Think about lottery winners.
Oh yeah, you hear about that all the time. They win huge amounts.
And statistically, many of them end up back near their original financial state within a few years.
Yeah.
The source argues it's not because they're bad people or stupid, but because their internal financial thermostat was still set much lower. The money was outside their comfort zone.
Whereas someone like the example used is Donald Trump, who lost billions but then made it back relatively quickly.
Right. The source would argue that happened because his billionaire mind, his financial thermostat, was still set for billions.
Yeah.
Even when the external money was gone, the internal capacity, the container, was still there.
The container. That's a key idea here too, isn't it?
It really is. This is a core point the source makes. Most people don't achieve their full financial potential because they haven't grown their internal capacity, their container, to not only create significant wealth, but also to handle it and handle the increased challenges and responsibilities that often come with it.
Okay, so it sounds kind of deterministic, but the good news, presumably, is that this blueprint, this thermostat setting, this container size, it isn't fixed forever.
Exactly. That's the hopeful part. The source absolutely argues it can be changed.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of the material really focuses on consciously installing new ways of thinking and acting ways that are more supportive of wealth. He calls these wealth files.
Wealth files. Okay, like files in a filing cabinet.
Kind of like that, yeah. They're presented as the fundamental differences in how genuinely rich people think and behave compared to how poor and middle-class people tend to think and behave.
And the idea is you can learn these.
Absolutely. The source stresses that these are learnable mindsets and habits. There's a wealth principle stated clearly. You can choose to think in ways that will support you in your happiness and success instead of ways that don't. It's presented as a choice.
Okay. And the source mentions the language can be a bit stark sometimes, right? Comparing rich versus poor.
Yeah, it makes a point about that. It sometimes uses very black and white comparisons between rich and poor middle-class thinking patterns. The stated intent isn't to be judgmental or put anyone down, but simply to highlight the contrasting patterns very clearly for learning purposes. The key is to see them as different approaches, different choices, not inherent worth.
Got it. And it really hammers home the idea that just reading isn't enough, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Action is presented as crucial. It explicitly says action is the bridge between your inner world, thoughts, blueprint, and your outer results. Money, success.
Doing habits and not doing habits.
Right. And the only way to change a not doing habit is, well, to start doing it. Seems obvious, but it's fundamental.
Okay, so let's get into some of these wealth files. What are some of the key ones?
Well, a really fundamental one it starts with is about responsibility. The source states flat out, rich people take responsibility for the results in their lives. Poor people tend to play the victim.
Playing the victim. How does it define that?
It points to three main signs. Blame, it's someone else's fault. Justification, making excuses like money isn't really important anyway. And complaining.
Complaining, right.
It describes these blame, justification, complaining as being like pills that might temporarily relieve the stress of failure, but they keep you powerless because you're not taking ownership.
And it tackles that money isn't important justification directly.
It does. It argues that saying money isn't important is harmful if you don't have any. The quote is something like, money is extremely important to the areas in which it works and extremely unimportant in the areas in which it doesn't. You can't pay your bills with love, as it points out.
Okay, so step one is ditching the victim stance and taking ownership. That feels foundational. What's another key file?
Another big one, wealth file #3, is about commitment. This is huge. The source says rich people are committed to being rich. They play the game of money to win. Poor people, on the other hand, often just want to be rich. They play not to lose.
Wanting versus committing, that's a big difference.
Huge. And wanting, the source argues, is pretty much useless on its own. Billions of people want to be rich, right? But wanting without commitment doesn't lead anywhere. It talks about different levels of wanting, like, I want to be rich, I choose to be rich, and finally, I commit to being rich. Only commitment really counts.
And it uses that example about ordering food in a restaurant?
Yeah, the ordering food thing. Many people look at the price first, right? They choose based on what's comfortable, what avoids the pain of spending too much that's playing not to lose. The source suggests rich people might order the market price lobster or steak without flinching, not because they're wasteful, but because their focus isn't on the potential loss. It's on getting what they truly want, playing to win.
So the suggested action is to define your goals as playing to win, and maybe even challenge yourself to order that market price item sometime.
Exactly. Shift the mindset from scarcity and fear to abundance and focus.
Okay. Commitment. Then what about how big you think?
Ah, yes. That leads into the file on value and quantity. Rich people tend to think big, poor people tend to think small. Rich people aim to serve and affect many people. Poor people often focus on serving just a few, or stay within a limited scope.
And it connects this to income, how?
It defines your value in the marketplace not just by supply, demand, and quality, but crucially, by quantity, how many people's lives you touch or affect. It offers a simple definition of an entrepreneur, someone who solves problems for people at a profit.
Solves problems.
Yeah. The core idea is the more people whose problems you solve, the more value you provide on a larger scale, the richer you become, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually too.
So the action there is about scaling up your thinking.
Definitely. The suggested action is a really powerful one. Brainstorm how you could potentially solve problems or provide value for 10 times the number of people you currently affect or interact with in your work or business. Really stretches your thinking.
That definitely forces you to think differently, doesn't it? From just your own income to your actual impact. But what if you have a great idea, something that could help lots of people, but you hate the idea of, like, selling it, promoting it?
That's a common one.
Yeah.
And leads directly to the file on promotion. Rich people, the source says, are willing and usually excellent promoters. Poor people often have a negative view of promotion and selling.
Why is that? Why the negativity?
The source suggests a few reasons. Maybe bad past experiences with pushy salespeople, maybe a feeling that promotion is somehow beneath them, or just general discomfort with putting themselves or their ideas out there.
But the source argues against that view.
Strongly. It takes that old saying, build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door, and adds a crucial condition, if they know about it.
Right. They have to know it exists.
Exactly. If you truly believe in the value of what you offer, whether it's a product, a service, an idea, even yourself in a job interview, the source argues it's basically your duty to let people know who could benefit from it. It states a wealth principle. Leaders earn a heck of a lot more money than followers. Promotion is seen as leadership.
So it reframes promotion. If you believe in your value, sharing it isn't pushy, it's helpful, responsible even.
That's the perspective, yes. Assuming, of course, you genuinely do have value to offer. But then what happens when you're out there promoting, trying things, and you hit problems?
Roadblocks.
Yeah, things inevitably go wrong sometimes.
This leads to a really critical file. Problems. The mindset difference here is key. Rich people are bigger than their problems. Poor people are smaller than their problems.
Bigger than their problems. What does that mean exactly? It means the size of the problem isn't absolute. It's relative to the size of the person facing it. The wealth principle here is incredibly empowering. The secret to success is not to try to avoid or get rid of or shrink from your problems. The secret is to grow yourself so that you are bigger than any problem.
So if you feel overwhelmed by a problem,
the source says it just means you are currently being small relative to that challenge. It even suggests a little mental trick. Point to yourself and say, mini-me, as a reminder that the issue isn't the problem's size, but your current capacity. The goal is to grow yourself.
Okay. And rich people focus on solutions.
Exactly. They don't get bogged down dwelling on the problem itself. They focus their energy on finding solutions, learning from the setback, and moving forward. This ties right back into that container idea. The bigger your internal capacity, your container, the smaller any given problem will seem, and the more resources you'll feel you have to handle it.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it? From the external problem to your internal capacity. Okay, another file that feels really foundational is the one on receiving.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Rich people are excellent receivers. Poor people are often poor receivers.
Why would someone be a poor receiver?
Lots of reasons, according to the source. Maybe deep-seated feelings of unworthiness, I don't deserve it. Or perhaps past conditioning, where receiving something good was somehow punished or followed by something bad. Or just being taught it's better to give than to receive, and taking it too literally.
But the source argues receiving is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. It makes a really powerful point. For every giver, there must be a receiver, and for every receiver, there must be a giver. There are two sides of the same coin, like inhale and exhale. Giving and receiving must be in balance.
So if you block receiving,
You're not just hurting yourself, you're actually blocking the energy flow for others who want to give to you. You're essentially telling the universe, don't send blessings my way.
wow. Okay, so how do you become a better receiver if that's a weak spot?
Practice. The source advocates for actively, consciously practicing receiving, even in small ways.
Like what?
Like when someone gives you a compliment, just say a simple, gracious thank you. Don't immediately deflect it, oh, this old thing, or feel obligated to return one instantly. Just receive it fully.
That sounds simple, but it can be hard for some people.
It really can. Another practice it mentions is to get really excited about any money you find or receive, no matter how small. Find a penny on the street, pick it up enthusiastically, and declare something like, I am a money magnet, thank you, universe. It's about training your subconscious to welcome abundance in all forms.
Reinforcing that receiving muscle. And the play account fits in here too, right?
Yes, absolutely. The play account concept, which is part of the money management system it details later, is presented as a vital tool for this. Setting aside a certain percentage of your income specifically to spend guilt-free every single month on things that make you feel good, feel pampered, feel rich.
And you have to spend it.
You must spend it monthly. Blow it in a fun way. The purpose isn't frivolous spending. The source argues it's essential for nurturing yourself, validating your worthiness, strengthening your receiving muscle, and making the whole process of wealth building enjoyable, not just a grind. It balances the saving and investing.
Okay, that makes sense. Balancing effort with enjoyment and receiving. Now, where does the money we're receiving and managing actually come from? That brings us to wealth file, #11, getting paid based on results. That feels like a major shift for a lot of people.
It is a major shift. Rich people, the source states, choose to get paid based on their results. Poor people choose to get paid based on their time,
Creating time for money.
which, as the source points out, automatically puts a ceiling on your income, right? There are only 24 hours in a day. You can only work so many of them.
And the idea of a steady paycheck being secure.
The source calls that largely a conditioned belief, often passed down from parents who valued security above all else, perhaps due to their own experiences like the Depression. It's presented as an illusion of security that actually limits potential.
It shares that advice from the author's father, doesn't it?
Yeah, something like, you'll never get rich working on straight salary for someone else. If you're going to work for someone, make sure you get paid on percentage. Better yet, work for yourself.
So the goal is to link your income to value produced.
Exactly. Position yourself where your income is tied directly to the results you generate, the value you create, not just the hours you clock in. This could be through things like sales commissions, performance bonuses, profit sharing, starting your own business, even part-time, getting stock options, creating something that pays royalties. Anything where the upside isn't capped by time.
Because the source says the only way to earn what you're truly worth is
by getting paid based on your results. It's a direct challenge to the time for money model. And the declaration for this one is simple. I choose to get paid based on my results.
That's a significant mindset shift. And it seems to tie directly into the next big one, wealth file #15, about passive income and net worth.
Absolutely. Rich people have their money work hard for them. Poor people work hard for their money.
It's not saying don't work hard.
No, not at all. Working hard is usually essential, especially at the beginning. But the source argues working hard alone is often not enough to achieve true financial freedom.
And financial freedoms is defined as
When your passive income exceeds your living expenses. Passive income being money you earn without having to actively work for it day to day. That's the goalpost.
Okay, and where does passive income come from?
The source identifies two main engines. First, money working for you. This is primarily through investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate rentals, anything that generates income or appreciates without your constant labor.
Okay, investments.
Yep.
And the second engine.
Business working for you. This means setting up systems so a business can operate and generate profit without your hands-on involvement required all the time. Think royalties from books or music, licensing fees, franchise fees, or building a company with management structures so it runs itself, or even network marketing structured correctly.
And it mentions that many people are almost conditioned against this idea.
Yeah, it notes that. We're often told, go get a job, work for your money. The idea of money working for you or a business working for you can feel foreign or even somehow wrong based on that earlier programming.
So this file emphasizes a long-term perspective.
Definitely. It contrasts the short-term thinking, often seen in poor and middle-class patterns, spend now, worry later, with the rich person's focus on long-term balance, enjoying life now while also consciously and systematically building passive income streams for future freedom.
And this is where tracking net worth becomes way more important than just tracking income.
Exactly. Net worth is presented as the ultimate measure of wealth. The source outlines the 4 key factors that drive your net worth. Do you remember them?
Let's see. Income is one, obviously. Savings, investments, and simplification.
You got it. Income, savings, investments, and simplification, which means consciously managing your lifestyle to reduce your cost of living, freeing up more money for savings and investments.
And it talks about Parkinson's law?
Right. Parkinson's law. Expenses tend to rise to meet income. That's why just earning a high income often isn't enough to build wealth. If you spend everything you make or more, your net worth doesn't grow.
So you need all 4 wheels on the bus, as the analogy goes.
Yeah, the bus analogy. Income, savings, investments, simplification, those are the 4 wheels. To move quickly and smoothly towards wealth, you need all 4 working together. Focusing on just income, for example, is like trying to drive a bus on one wheel. You won't get far, or it'll be a very bumpy ride.
And it contrasts buying assets versus buying expenses.
Critically, rich people acquire assets, things that are likely to go up in value or produce income. Stocks, businesses, income-producing real estate. Poor and middle-class people tend to acquire expenses or liabilities, things that go down in value and cost money to maintain, like consumer goods, new cars bought on payments, etc.
And it really pushes real estate, doesn't it?
It does. Strongly recommend investing in real estate, using that memorable line. Don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Patience and letting assets appreciate.
Okay, but none of this passive income, net worth, assets works if you can't handle the money you do have, right? Which brings us to money management. Wealth file, #12.
Absolutely crucial. The source doesn't mince words here. It calls money management a vital skill, maybe the most important habit for building wealth, and states a wealth principle bluntly. Until you show you can handle what you've got, you won't get any more.
That's direct. It uses the ice cream cone analogy, right?
Yeah, the kid with the ice cream cone. If a small child can't even manage a single scoop without dropping it, you're probably not going to give them a triple scoop cone, are you? You have to demonstrate you can handle small amounts responsibly before the universe or opportunity entrusts you with larger amounts.
And it says the habit is more important than the amount.
Massively important. The habit of managing your money matters far more than how much money you're managing initially. The source shares stories of people who literally started its system by managing just a single dollar a month just to build the habit, the muscle. And it worked.
And it emphasizes balance in management, not just saving.
Yes, balance is key. It introduces a specific system, which it details elsewhere, involving separate accounts for different purposes. It particularly highlights the importance of accounts like the FFA. The financial freedom account money that goes in there is only used for investments to build passive income. Never spent.
And the play account we talked about earlier.
And the play account, which must be spent every month on enjoyment to keep things fun and reinforce receiving. Other accounts are for necessities, long-term savings, education, giving, etc. It's about conscious allocation.
Because the principle is,
either you control money or it will control you. Managing your money effectively, the source argues, builds tremendous confidence and a sense of control that actually spills over and enhances other areas of your life too.
Okay, so you get the mindset right, you learn to manage money, but you still have to do things, which leads to the file on action. Wealth file, #16.
Yes, action. This is where the rubber meets the road. As mentioned before, action is the bridge between the inner world, mindset, blueprint, and the outer world, results. But the biggest block to action is often
Fear,
doubt, worry, discomfort, all those lovely feelings. But the wealth principle here is really counterintuitive and liberating. It is not necessary to try to get rid of fear in order to succeed.
Really? You don't have to wait until you feel brave.
Not at all. Quite the opposite, according to this. The key is to practice acting in spite of fear, in spite of doubt, in spite of worry, in spite of inconvenience, in spite of discomfort, and even acting when you're absolutely not in the mood.
Wow. Just do it anyway.
Just do it anyway. Train yourself to be uncomfortable. The source uses this equation. CZWZ. Your comfort zone equals your wealth zone.
Meaning, to expand your wealth, you have to expand your comfort zone.
Precisely. You have to be willing to do things that feel uncomfortable, that stretch you. The source argues that the only time you are truly growing is when you are uncomfortable. Comfort might feel safe, but it's where potential stagnates.
And it talks about the mind being the biggest obstacle here.
Oh yeah. It calls the mind a survival mechanism, constantly scanning for danger, and a fantastic soap opera scriptwriter that loves to invent dramatic, worst-case scenarios, most of which never actually happen.
So the fear is mostly mental chatter.
A lot of it is, yes.
Yeah.
It uses that quite dramatic analogy of the seminar exercise, where people supposedly break an arrow pointing at their throat, stressing not to try it at home, of course. But the point it makes is that the mental fear and dread before the action is often far, far worse than the physical act itself. The lesson is to train yourself to act despite the mind's fear-mongering.
Okay. Act despite fear. And the declarations here are things like, I act in spite of fear.
Exactly. I act in spite of fear. I act in spite of doubt. I act in spite of worry. I act when I'm not in the mood. Repeating these reinforces the commitment to action over feeling.
Got it. Okay, one last big one. Underpinning all of this seems to be continuous learning. Wealth file #17.
Yes, the final file. Rich people are constantly learning and growing. Poor people often think they already know.
I know that.
The source calls those the 3 most dangerous words in the world when it comes to success. I know that. Because if you think you already know it, you close your mind to learning anything new or implementing it differently. The underlying message is, if you're not already as rich and happy as you want to be, there's probably something you don't know or aren't doing effectively about money, success, or life.
And success is presented as learnable.
Absolutely. Success is learnable. It's a skill. The wealth principle here is encouraging. Every master was once a disaster. Everyone starts somewhere.
So the focus should be on developing yourself.
That's the core message. The fastest way to get rich and stay rich, according to this source, is to work on developing you. To grow yourself into the kind of person who can create and handle success. It comes back to that BEDDO have model. You have to be the right person first, then you will do the right things, which will allow you to have what you want.
Your outer world reflects your inner world.
Exactly. Become a successful person internally, and the external success will follow. There's another principle. To get paid the best, you must be the best. Constantly improving your skills, knowledge, and character.
And learn from the right people.
Yeah, it stresses learning from people who've actually achieved the real-world results you desire, not just theorists or consultants who haven't walked the walk themselves. And again, it emphasizes that the action exercises suggested throughout the material aren't just optional extras. They're presented as absolutely imperative for creating permanent, cellular-level change, going beyond just intellectual understanding.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to unpack from these pages. So just to sort of wrap up this deep dive into Shoket.pdf, the core message seems incredibly powerful. Your financial reality, what you see on the outside, is profoundly shaped by this subconscious blueprint inside you.
Right, a blueprint built largely from your past, what you heard, saw, and experienced around money, mostly when you were young.
And this is the crucial part, that blueprint isn't a life sentence. It's not fixed.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The source provides what it presents as a clear path to change it. It's about consciously identifying your current programming and then deliberately choosing and installing new mindsets and habits, these wealth files, that are aligned with financial success.
So shifting your thinking, managing your money consciously, actively looking for ways to build passive income, taking responsibility.
Being willing to promote value, growing bigger than your problems, learning to receive, getting paid based on results, and crucially, taking consistent action, especially when it feels uncomfortable.
It really is a call to look inward first, understand those roots, and then deliberately start cultivating new ones through conscious thought, declaration, and especially action.
It is. And, if you're listening to this and maybe feeling a bit challenged or wondering if your own ingrained beliefs are holding you back, the source leaves you with a really provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Remember how at the very beginning of the material, it suggested you don't believe a word it says, just test it for yourself. Well, it circles back with this kicker. Maybe if you really want to take off in your life, don't believe a word you say either.
Don't believe what I say.
Meaning, don't automatically believe all the limiting stories, the excuses, the fears that your conditioned mind constantly tells you about what is or isn't possible for you. Question your own internal narrative. That might be the biggest key of all.